Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are with us on day 5 of the Karajan Music Tech Conference 2021. It's our closing day already, but we still have a lot to talk about. My name is Julia Kaiser, and I welcome you at our first talk of the day. Innovation to opera is our topic. Taking opera out to the people is communities or to communities is something probably every opera company in the world wants to achieve. One of my favorite projects is the Opera Dolmusch minibus of the Komische Oper Berlin that packs one musician, one or two singers, and some prop and takes it to Turkish communities around the city to perform opera scenes. But now let's think bigger. Think Canada, a country of almost 10 million square kilometers and a very widespread population, and one ambitious opera theater. Please welcome on stage Robin Whiffen, Executive Director of Against the Grain Theater. Welcome, Robin.
Thank you, Julia. How are you today?
I'm very good, and how are you?
I'm well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
You are in Toronto, I suppose, so it must be winter or spring?
We're actually getting an early spring, which is lovely. Yesterday, it was 19 degrees Celsius and sunny. Unusually warm for this time of year, but we're enjoying it.
Yeah, I'm so jealous because here in Berlin, it's trying to get spring, but whenever there is some effort on this, it's getting back to winter. So we'll still have to wait a little bit. Taking an opera on a minibus and then just go around the corner and play it, that's something that's probably far away from your project. But you're taking opera out of the usual. That's the idea of Against the Grain Theater.
Absolutely. Against the Grain Theater's mandate is to create and introduce audiences to outside the box opera experiences. And so for us as a company over the last 11 years, that's taken many forms. And we actually have done a little bit of the bus idea in that in 2019, we toured across 4 provinces in Canada, a production of La Boheme, which played in bars in the 4 provinces that we went through. And we had 2 minivans that took the whole crew across these 4 provinces into these locations where there are typically not regional opera companies in some cases. So we have done that to some extent, and it's something that we look forward to doing when we can return to live performances, continuing to bring opera to the community. But our new project, Messiah Complex, had a little bit of a different approach.
Yeah, let's come to that in a minute, because I want to, let's illustrate all the angles you can take. Like you can go to unusual places, to bars, like you just said, or to unusual communities, to people who sort of have this anxiety to go closer to that, what they think is it's just for the upper class and educated audiences, music theater. Or you can actually embrace everything. So it looks like Against the Grain Theater took every step and then melted it together.
Yeah, absolutely. So a hallmark of our work over the last several years has been this concept called Opera Pub, which is the first Thursday of every month. We are at a pub in Toronto. It's free of charge. And we have different artists every month, and singers would come and perform arias in a very casual environment. And many times we would be catching restaurant patrons off guard because they didn't really understand what was happening. And then, of course, there were opera singers starting to sing while they were having their beer or drink or their dinner. So that's one way that we've started to take opera out of the traditional opera house and bring it into the community. And that program has become very popular for us, and we have lineups down the street in normal times and big audiences for that event, because it just takes away some of the anxiety around that has traditionally existed around operatic performances, and makes it very casual and welcoming and accessible. And so that's been kind of a building block of our programming. We also have worked in collaboration with a variety of community organizations to bring opera into other communities. And for example, we brought a production of La Boheme to the Yukon Territory, which is the northern most eastern or western rather territory in Canada. And when that production was brought there, it had been the first time that opera was produced in that territory in over 100 years. So we work really hard to create new opportunities to bring audiences into the work that we do in a really accessible and fun way, so that audiences can see that there are really great stories being told by opera, and that those stories are open for everybody to enjoy.
The new project, Messiah Complex, is taking not actually an opera, it's taking an oratorio, but one of those oratorios that tell a huge story. And you brought us a little trailer which shows exactly where you're taking it, and it's just, I find it amazing. So let's look into it. Wow. It's I have so many ideas to that. First of all, you didn't know where my idea of winter came from. But also community-wise, I mean, we saw a lot of different conductors. So the piece by Handel, Messiah by Handel, is known all over the world and to many classical choirs, which are not necessarily connected to opera, but maybe just have that access to the piece through which they might be taken into that project. So are you communing choruses as well?
Yeah, so this project was our largest undertaking in our 11-year history. And over the course of the pandemic, we were thinking, okay, well, how is it that we can really start to communicate and engage with not only our community, but a greater community outside of the Toronto area as a result of this digital opportunity that we now have. And so one of the things we discussed was this idea of Handel's Messiah, which has been a mainstay in Against the Grain's repertoire over the last several years. And when we started thinking about ways that we could use it in a digital capacity, one of the things we thought was, well, how cool would it be if we could engage artists in every province and territory in Canada and do this cross-country project so that we can really showcase the landscape and the people of Canada, and some of the languages, traditional languages as well, but also in a way that is really meaningful, because the Messiah means so much to many people around the holiday season. And of course, many symphonies were having to cancel their performances. So this idea was born from the fact that Messiah was in our repertoire, and we wanted to be able to bring it to audiences over the holiday season. And so what we did was engage 12 soloists from across the country, as well as 4 choirs. And we had, it was a very iterative process in that we laid the foundation for the piece with the Toronto Symphony Orchestra. And they did all the recording, the orchestral recording, and then we had that recording mixed and mastered, and then the individual tracks went out to the singers and the choirs, and then they recorded on top of the tracks, and then when that was finished, they all did music videos. And so then we had this beautiful visual of Canada that we were able to string together. But it was really a really exciting experience getting to work with a lot of artists that we wouldn't typically work with, and choirs that we wouldn't typically work with. So it was a really big community building opportunity for us to engage with all of these new folks who were just outside of the community that we typically serve.
I love the idea that it's not only bringing out music, but taking back words, because you worked on the text of the oratorio with different communities, and also brought in indigenous communities, and communities you wouldn't necessarily think of. Yes, this is the Messiah audience, or this is the opera audience. So through language and through working on their culture and through bringing something to an exchange, this got even bigger.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Canadians across the country have a lot of pride for where they're from, and especially within the provinces and territories as well. So it was really nice that within each province and territory, we were working with local teams to build this project. And then once the artists from those provinces and territories started to tell their community about the work that they were doing, the audience just grew and grew and grew, because of course all of these people wanted to share their pride for the work that they were doing and their home. And so the project escalated in an incredible way. We reached over 44 countries with this live stream and on-demand project. And, typically we would be reaching a very small population within Toronto. But it was very neat to see how word of mouth really encouraged the sharing of this piece. And the media, of course, played an incredible role. But it was the artists and the choirs really were great ambassadors for the work that they were doing. And so that just amplified the project. And they were sharing it with their communities as well.
So the number of your subscribers for your next projects, I think, rose a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the past, when we had done live projects, we would get an audience of about 1,600 to 2,000 people for a run. 135,000 views were on Messiah Complex when the run finished. And our media community, we had about 3,000 email subscribers at the beginning of the project, and now we've got a list of 24,000. So we've really amplified our message in a really incredible way, and which is very exciting for us, because we want to continue bringing this work to audiences, and so it's just given us a much broader platform in order to do that, which is really great.
We talked this week a lot about substitution because of the pandemic, but nearly not nearly to any conversation, but to some conversations. In the end, we got to the point where we said, yeah, but it's the live experience is just something else, because being there physically and feeling what's happening there, that just can't be in something you're providing digitally. Do you agree in that, or is there a chance, like to throwing out the hook and then getting people closer to the live event once it's possible again?
I do think that that's a very valid statement. I don't think there's anything quite like the sound washing over you when you're in an auditorium in person. But one of the things that we've learned is that, all over the world, there's many people who are interested in classical music and experiencing that digitally. And in many cases, just because of geographic isolation or, living in remote communities, they don't necessarily have access to these kinds of live productions. And so it feels like a very important activity for us to continue to maintain a digital presence in a way that provides work that is made for film in order to engage this much broader community that we now have, and to continue to embrace and build those relationships with people who have come into our family of audience members as a result of this project. So I think for us as a company, digital will remain a big part of what we do, just by virtue of the fact that we can't disenfranchise a incredible audience of people who we have now the capacity to share our work with and who obviously are interested in absorbing this kind of work. So it's something that we will continue to do for sure.
What I love on your project, you told me before, it's not only the core team is not only working in Toronto and then bringing everything out, the results. You have these exchanges and these steady exchanges actually with communities nobody else would go to. Why is that so fruitful?
So one of those relationships is with the Yukon Territory, again, that Western Northern Territory, and they have a territorial arts community, arts organization called the Yukon Arts Center. And Against the Grain has had a really fruitful relationship with the Yukon Arts Center over the last several years. And we've, over time, continued to bring projects to the Yukon just because our relationship with them is so good. But I think it's really important that we use the opportunity that we have to share our work through these relationships. And so that relationship with the Yukon Arts Center has been something that we've continued to build. And they were very supportive of the Messiah Complex project. And if you remember, there's a beautiful image of a woman in a burgundy parka walking through the snow with the mountains behind her. So that was filmed
from
in
that
the Yukon.
territory. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And so, the Yukon Arts Center is an incredible ambassador for arts in their territory, but also across the country. And they've been a really meaningful partner for us. And so we are building those partnerships with organizations across the country. More so now as a result of relationships we've built through Messiah Complex, but they have been relationships that we've had over time that we've continued to cultivate and nurture, and those have been paramount in our success.
What are you bringing back? I mean, because as far as I know, there's no opera in an Inuit language.
Yeah, so one of the things we haven't actually done translations in Indigenous languages before. One of the things that has been very common for us is this idea of a transladaptation, which was coined by our artistic director. And what that word means is a translation and an adaptation. And so what we've done with those is brought pieces like La Bohème and the Nozze di Figaro and these really traditional operas and translated them into English and updated the text so that they're congruent with the original story, but relevant for a modern audience. So that is one way that we had been manipulating text and language. But when it came to the Messiah Complex project, we really had some really meaningful conversations with the artists about whether or not they would like to share their pieces in their own languages. And so that it turned out that we had several Indigenous languages included in the project, and we didn't have much involvement in that. The artists really took that away, and they worked with elders from their community and their family members to create the translations. And that's in the case of the Indigenous languages, of course. But then with Arabic, the singer who sings in Arabic, she had worked with her mother and father to translate her piece. And so it's been a really interesting and exciting exploration to hear some of these pieces that you wouldn't necessarily hear in other languages, especially, Inuktitut or Southern Shoshone or Arabic, and to actually hear those and think and reflect on how much more meaningful they are, that the singers can tell their stories through their languages. It's really meaningful, and I think that's work that we will continue to explore as time goes on.
Are there any plans to create a musical work that comes actually from those communities?
So I think this is really interesting because a lot of artists now are having these conversations about creating artist-centric work or artist-centered work where the artists are at the center of the decision-making. So that is a conversation that we're having, and we have actually just commissioned a new piece for that reason. We haven't commissioned a piece in an Indigenous language yet, but I think that that's something that we will continue to explore. There are some incredible Indigenous artists in our country who are creating work for the operatic canon, and so those folks are really best situated to tell their stories. And so we will support those efforts as much as we can. But yeah, it's very exciting to see how this idea of artist-centered work will expand the canon and create opportunity for us to hear opera in all kinds of languages and from all kinds of, ancestral stories and things like that. So it's a very exciting time, I think, in the opera community.
The Messiah Complex has been premiered and everything, but you're now re-premiering it? Is it like that? Or are you putting it back on? You are. Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, so one of the things that was really fascinating was the number of people who wanted access to the piece after we had taken it offline. And, as many people are aware, Handel's Messiah was written for Easter initially, and it premiered on April 13th of 1742. So we thought, well, what a great opportunity for us to bring this project back for Easter. And so we are doing a short run from April 1st to April 13th of Messiah Complex so that audiences can enjoy it over the Easter holiday.
It is now time to open the conversation a little bit to questions. As far as I see, not on YouTube nor on our conference backstage area, where the Brain Trust is meeting in our lobby, but a lot of amazing and everybody's waving and giving thumbs up, and so everybody's really excited about your work. Only no questions, so please, people, come. What do you want to know from Robin? In the meantime, we can actually speak about something private, because I never know, is it Robin or Robin?
It is Robin.
It is Robin.
It is, yeah.
It's so embarrassing if after a talk somebody says, besides, my name is pronounced completely different than you did for half an hour now. So, Robin.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, let's talk private. What brought you personally actually into this Against the Grain theater?
Well, I think I actually have education in classical music. I was a singer and studied as a singer in university. And I had seen actually Against the Grain Theater's first production of Messiah as a school assignment, which was really interesting, a really interesting way to get introduced to the company. But when I graduated, I got some experience in an administrative position with Opera on the Avalon, which is a wonderful opera company in the province where I'm from originally. And then this job became available, and I have always admired the work that Against the Grain Theater was doing to amplify the voices of, diverse artists and tell really interesting and meaningful stories. And so it was exciting for me to have the opportunity to join their team, because I just have always been so inspired by the work that they're doing.
Against the Grain, I forgot to ask that before. I know Against the Wall, which is kind of aggressive, and Against the Stream, Against the Waves, but Against the Grain is just so warm feeling of doing something that you work hard because you know it's worth it. And it's a beautiful name. So
thank you.
I have here a question of Matthias coming in. Do you think that opera should transcend genre borders as well?
This is a great question. So we're working on a project right now. As I mentioned, we've commissioned a song cycle recently, and that that piece, we're really exploring the difference between Western and Eastern musical idioms in the musical writing, but it's also going to be accompanied by a jazz trio. So we're really pushing the boundaries of what opera can be and the musical idioms that it can include, which is really exciting, because I think that the more that we can think more broadly about the kind of music that is opera, then the more inclusive that we will become and the more accessible that our work will become to people. So yeah, absolutely. I love the idea of transcending genres for sure.
So it's not about watering down what we have this all over the years, the opera. It's more about enriching it, yeah?
Absolutely. And I think, it's not watering it down at all. It's making it more creative and innovative, and providing an opportunity for more people to explore opera. Because I think for me, what opera is just this amazing opportunity to tell stories. And it's, amplified by the orchestra and the set design and the costume design and, all of these beautiful things that we're able to incorporate into a multimedia genre. So, I think that the more that we can explore and create and be innovative within the idea of what opera is, the more beautiful work that we will see in this genre for sure.
I popped in a question of Joel Ivany. How can collaboration become more a part of the future? Like probably a part of the future or apart from the future? We don't really know but both is actually interesting.
I think the collaboration is going to be more important now than ever. Arts organizations all over the world are struggling as a result of the pandemic. But one thing that I think is really exciting is the opportunity to work with new partners and just see the outcome of those partnerships and how the work can evolve and the art can evolve as a result of being more collaborative. And I think one thing that was really inspiring on Messiah Complex, for example, is the fact that we had co-directors, and then we had artists, and then we had film teams. And so we had 10 teams across the country who are capturing these videos. And the way that process worked was very collaborative, and everyone had a seat at the table to state their opinions and to, throw ideas around and really get the creative juices flowing. So in my opinion, the more that we can continue to collaborate, one will be building better relationships with our colleagues and our communities, but also building audiences, creating more exciting work. So the word collaboration to me just is, light bulbs all over. There's a lot of opportunity for growth of the art form through collaboration.
Collaboration is a key word of what we will do now in our backstage area in the lobby. I hope you're coming there, Robin, and maybe you're also coming to our virtual dinner tonight. There's one more question. Okay, we have time for that. What do you think about composing a modern opera only for digital space? It can contain some stereo effects that we can hear only in headphones.
Interesting idea. One thing actually that we are exploring through some upcoming projects is the role of digital sound as a part of the orchestra. So we are working with this incredible composer who's based here in Ontario. His name is Kevin Lau. And he's actually recomposed some Handel arias that in a way that they include new musical idioms. And then as a relationship to that, coupled with that, we have this sound designer who's going to bring in all of these electronic sounds. So I think that we can really, again, going back to genre bending, bringing in pieces of other musical cultures and musical ideas is really interesting, and I think can only enhance the art form.
We will learn more about that, and we will discuss this on back in the lobby, or maybe over dinner tonight, because we're providing this virtual dinner with Kim Arazi, a multi-sensorial dinner concept. More information about this is provided also in the lobby of our Slack channel. And in case I say thank you, Robin, for being with me here. And before I pass this on, thanks and all best luck for this. Thank you, Robin. Meet you in the backstage area in the lobby. And thank you. Bye. And in case you don't know what to wear for this virtual dinner tonight, here might be a suggestion by Matthias Röder, who will now talk about the SoundShirt, but in fact, he's not even here yet. So maybe I get Robert back on the screen, and we just keep on talking. Actually, that was so well prepared to pass this on to Matthias, but well, he's not here yet because he will be our next host. Robin, or any more questions from the back end there? Because I felt so well in time. This happens because it's live.
That's right, so, exactly.
People out there, I hope we all enjoy this conversation. Robin, do you want to send a message out apart from share and dare and do everything together here?
Oh, there we go.
Hey,
yes,
folks.
Matthias.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, I had this beautiful handover to you and your conversation now, because I said, if you don't know what to wear tonight, Matthias will have a suggestion for you, because he will now be talking about the SoundShirt.
Yes, it's a beautiful translation. It came only 15 minutes too early, but that's no problem, because we can spend some more time together. I really want to thank Robin one more time, because you're doing so many amazing things, and one of the reasons why we try to build Karajan Music Tech as a global network is that we can learn more about what's going on in other places of the world. It is amazing, but also frightening at the same time that we don't know about everything, even though we could. And I don't know if it's the same the other way around as well.
Absolutely.
But everyone's sort of steeped in their own geography, I feel.
Yeah, I think you're right. But one thing that has been really incredible about, silver linings in the pandemic is the opportunity for us to start to connect across borders, which really hasn't been a big opportunity. I think there have been maybe a few opportunities with regards to within opera. There are some, international events, but we really don't get to talk on a broader scale. And I think that it's been really exciting to see some of the interesting work that's coming out of countries all over the world as a result of having to get really innovative throughout the last 12 months. So I think that is a silver lining of the pandemic, that collaboration across borders.
I mean, we had a discussion yesterday with Marin Alsop and with Marshall Marcus about aspects pertaining to sustainable development goals, which are, global goals that are supposed to be relevant everywhere. But at the same time, our systems of funding the arts are local or regional, sometimes national. And that creates a kind of friction, because these kinds of global, cooperations are difficult to achieve this way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the conversations that we're having in Canada is just the equitable distribution of funds through the granting bodies. And we're very fortunate that Canada does have significant support from all levels of government. I can't say the same for our neighbors down south. Unfortunately, they don't have the same opportunity. But I think it's an interesting conversation about how we will be able to sustain that funding going forward. Because of course, as the economic and global priorities shift, that in some cases is meaning a shift away from funding for the arts. So it'll be interesting to see how that progression happens, I think.
Mm-hmm. There's one question coming in from Baz in the back. Are there other organizations similar to Against the Grain Theatre that they are in touch with and recommend looking up, perhaps in other countries? We had Beyond the Opera Beyond project of Lila yesterday, where they're building an opera, a dome in which you can actually experience a digital art form. And so taking the idea of opera or the genre to further limits. You said before, is there any other theater or company you're working with to just collaborate?
Yeah, so in terms of companies that we're collaborating with, I think it's interesting because everybody now is re-evaluating the work that they're doing and how they're engaging with audiences and the kind of art that they want to produce and share. So it's been nice to see how companies are adapting over time. So I wouldn't say that I'm aware of any organizations that are really similar to us, just in the sense that we're very small and we do a lot with not a lot. But I think just in terms of collaboration, we've been working with a lot of different organizations, big and small, some more traditional and some not. And there's been a lot of really great cohesion between organizations just because of wanting to be able to engage with communities and audiences and build relationships in a similar way. So I know that doesn't really answer the question.
It's going into a good direction, because I was just thinking it's a very tiresome job to embrace people and to engage people who want to share a good idea and to help to make it happen. But then afterwards, if it's just unbalancing, because there's a lot of work to be done and everybody wants to look good and look as a good person, but sometimes it's just a lot of work that can't be done, because then people are pulling back because they want the credit of being a good person, but at the same time they can't really put so much effort into the work. So how to balance that and how to strengthen people, although through the pandemic we can't be directly together, how to encourage them to still stay with good ideas and help making them real.
Mm-hmm. I think that the thing that I always think about in terms of all of these ideas, just the importance of building relationships and maintaining relationships. And I think that one of the most beneficial parts of the pandemic for us as a company has been the opportunity to get face-to-face with people that we don't typically. We've been having a lot of really, a lot of really interesting conversations with artists and with, our community and also the global community, just as a result of being able or being more willing to build relationships in this technological way where you're speaking to your computer, but there's somebody on the other end. So yeah, I would say that the most important part of all of this is just continuing to build relationships. And if we want to encourage people to, continue to cultivate good ideas, we have to provide them with the mentorship and leadership to do those things. And so just being a support system for artists in our community is something that has been really important to us.
And can I come back to the question of sort of the mechanics of funding?
Mm-hmm.
what are sort of the metrics that in your community? What are the local metrics or regional metrics for funding? Is it a number of ticket sales? What is sort of the metric that people look at?
So for us, I think COVID has changed this drastically because there's such an influx of free content. For us, typically we would look at a model of about 33% of our funding would come from government bodies, and then 33% from tickets and 33% from donations, both corporate and individual and foundational. Yeah. The thing that has been interesting is now we have no ticket revenue as a result of not being in venues and things like that. So we've had to get really creative about the ways, well, first of all, the ways that we spend money, but also the ways that we raise money.
That you don't spend money.
Yeah, exactly. I said to somebody, there's no better way to save money than to not produce work. But of course, that's not what we want to do. So we've had to get very creative about how we go about raising money. But I have to say that the government bodies in Canada have been very supportive of arts organizations and artists over the course of the pandemic. And I think there are very important advocacy conversations happening as well to encourage further support from the government for artists. One of the conversations that's really prominent right now is a universal basic income for artists, and providing more equitable distribution of funds to smaller companies rather than the larger, just, giving money to the larger companies because they're more established or what have you. So there's really interesting conversations happening as a result of the pandemic, but also it comes back to the sustainability piece, which is how long can we sustain giving money to, the top tier organizations while, in many cases there are really small companies doing really incredible work, but with very few dollars.
Yeah. So. And there are musicians and singers and artists employed by the smaller entities as well, right? Yes. And ultimately, if the organizations can no longer exist, then the living basis for the musicians is also gone.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because we are a very small organization, but about half, if not more, of our annual expenses go towards paying artists. On the Messiah Complex, we engaged over 200 artists on that project and arts workers. So it is really important to us that we are able to employ people in our field and continue to provide opportunities for employment. So that may not be the approach for everyone, but that's certainly our approach.
No more questions from our community out there. Maybe one last one from me. What is the greatest insight or the greatest heartwarming you got out of this project?
Oh, goodness. There were so many. It's amazing because, like I said, we had a very small community of people engaged with us socially prior to this project. And we have received thousands of heartwarming emails as a result of this project. And it's just been really meaningful to see how this piece has impacted people all over the world. So I can't even name one. There's been way too many, which is a great problem.
Good. I think Francesca is not here yet.
Oh, she is here. She
is. Okay.
We what we can do is we can take a little break. There she is. No, perfect. I see her.
Hello.
I'll get her on the stream.
Hello.
Hello.
Francesca's hi, Francesca. Yeah, there she is. Hi. Hello. So, because then we would hand it over to Matthias and Francesca, and Robin and I will be in the lobby in case there's more question from you.
Yeah.
Great.
Robin, thank you so much. Thank you,
Thanks for
Julia.
having me.
Bye.
I like this about this software, that you can actually do this kind of handover. I let McAulay change the order of the images. How are you doing, Francesca? It's good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too, Matthias. I'm really well. I mean, the weather is not the best in London today, but it was pouring earlier, but glad to be here with you guys. I was listening earlier. It was like very interesting. So.
Yeah. You know, I'm so excited that we have people from other parts of the world to join in and tell us a little bit about their projects. We had someone from South America a couple of days ago, now, Canada. And today we are talking with Francesca Rosella from CuteCircuit, which is, one of, if not the greatest pioneer of tech wear, or, clothing that is enhanced with technology. And I'm so excited that you are with us today.
Yeah, I'm very excited too, because I'm going to show you something new that we've been developing the whole year, like during the pandemic. And so as you know, like we were sort of like developing all these like big concerts all over the world using our technology that actually I'm wearing.
Okay, yes.
and then all of a sudden, due to the pandemic, there were no more concerts to be had anywhere. And so we started working on a mobile version of our software, so that if you want, instead of going to a concert, you can be home and have the same effect. So I'll tell you more about it.
Yes, and we agreed before we had our first talk that we said, like, we want this to be interactive, and it would be really fun if other people send their questions and comments so that we could show that. So you guys out there, if you are watching, feel free to post your question in either the YouTube comments or Facebook or Twitch or LinkedIn. Even wherever we are streaming, we will be able to see this and bring you in the show.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, if you have any questions, I think it's always good to hear what the audience has to say. I like to hear everyone's comments.
Francesca, can we maybe talk a little bit about CuteCircuit to begin with? Because it may not be something that everyone knows about, and it is so unique. I was wondering, when did you have the idea, and how did this develop to create a company dedicated to this fusion of fashion and technology?
Of course. So I started this company, CuteCircuit, in 2004 with my co-founder, Ryan Gantz. And basically, we met in a research institute where we were studying interaction design and how people would use technology 5 to 10 years in the future. And, so we started working together. And one of the first products that we designed was the hug shirt.
Okay.
That let you send a hug over distance to a loved one. And we started developing this product because we were doing something called designing desire, and so designing something desirable. And we interviewed a group of people and we asked them, if you could wish for something now, what would you wish for? And everybody wished to be hugged. And so we're like, okay, we have a problem. How do we make something that hugs you? And so we did something that is called body storming. We did many design sessions in which we actually had a group of people hugging each other for a very long time, wearing white shirts. And Ryan and I would go around with markers, sort of marking the people's position of their hands on the other person's body. And by doing this body storming, body mapping, we were able to find the areas on a person's body that people touch the most when they hug someone. So as you can imagine, it's like here around the shoulders, around the waist. So imagine hugging someone, and these are the areas that people touch the most. But we sort of created a taxonomy of these areas. And so we were able to codify them in a sort of a hug language. And the thing that happened is that...
Hug language.
Exactly. So we decided, okay, what we're going to do, we're going to create a garment with sensors and actuators that can actually sense where you're touching, for how long and how strong your touch is. And then we're going to have actuators that are little vibration motors that recreate this touch over distance.
Uh-huh.
And so this was the concept. And we've been working on this concept for many, many years. The first version of the product in 2006 was awarded as one of the best inventions of the year by Time magazine. And after that, there was so much curiosity and requests. So we kept working on this product. And every 2 years, 3 years, we make a new version of it with other features. And one thing that happened in 2016 was that we were contacted by the Junge Sinfoniker Orchestra in Hamburg. And they came to us saying, well, we saw the hug shirts, but do you think that we could use hug shirts to let our deaf audience members feel music?
Wow.
And so that was their challenge.
Yeah. So it seems like you like the challenges, design a shirt that can send hugs over the internet, make music audible for people without hearing. Do you have a particular way of working to make this happen? Is there a particular design approach in doing this? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes, basically, the thing that we do is that every time there is a challenge, we take it as an opportunity to invent something new. Mm-hmm. And I think actually the best way to develop products is to be challenged along the way. Because I think if you just have an idea of a product, you design it, you put it out there, and then sometimes people do not feel like they have contributed to the creation, and so they do not feel like a sort of an emotional closeness with this kind of product. So when we design products, we involve users in the design process, so like we did with the hug shirts, making people hug each other, because we really want to know early on what people's feedback would be. So for example, when we designed the first version of the SoundShirt and we gave it to the Junge Sinfoniker with a brand new software that instead of letting you send hugs would interpret. I can see Maxine's expression. It would interpret the music in real time so that then a person could feel music through touch. And so when we deployed this first garment, then the orchestra was absolutely genius because they interviewed every person that tried it and asked them for their feedback.
Wow.
So 1 year later, we received this amazing, very thick package of feedback with everybody's comment, every person that had tried it. And the thing that we discovered is that there were deaf people, blind people, deaf blind people, and every person had some suggestion for us on how to make the experience even better. Mm-hmm. And so this is what we did. For example, the first version of the garment had, I think, 10 actuation areas.
What is an actuation and what is an actuator? Tell our audience.
Yeah, let's go back there. So for example, if you imagine you have a light switch on the wall. Yeah. So if you push the switch, that's the input. And when the light turns on, that's the output. Mm-hmm. So in the shirt, we have the exact same thing. When I touch my sensor, your shirt starts vibrating. So input, touch, output, vibration. And so we call that the actuators because it actually actuates an action that you have to perform.
It's the moving part of the system.
Exactly. Okay. So it's something that sort of makes an active effect. Mm-hmm. And so then the thing is that we had this first version with just a few, and they all had tiny little vibration motors inside, sort of like when you have your mobile phone and it rings, and if you're not really picking up, starts vibrating, and then you hear it, right? Yeah. Or you can feel the vibration on the table. That's the same thing. So we have really tiny vibration motors, and then some of the users said, well, I'd like to have a more intense feeling. So when we went to the second iteration of the product, we added stronger motors.
Okay.
So that they would vibrate in a stronger way. And the thing that is really interesting is that then they started asking us, can you actually put more? So we went from a version that had sort of mild little vibration motors in 10 areas of the garment to something that now has 28 vibration motors in all over the garments, front, back, sides, sleeves, and they actually are 3 different types of motors of different intensities. So that actually we were able to codify lighter motors for the violins, medium motors for the viola, the cello, or the woodwind left and right, and then like stronger motors for all the bass, like the timpani. So I think it is like really interesting how we went from something that was like simpler, and then we got more and more complex, because actually we were able to target every part of the garment singularly and create the exact effect of every instrument.
Wow, that's cool. And I'm sorry, we have questions from the audience, and those should go first. So we had a question from Maxime. LSO, I think that's a London Symphony Orchestra. Nice having you here. Having tried the amazing SoundShirt, do you imagine a time where people can one day rent these shirts at concerts to enhance their experience or to aid the art of hearing, I guess?
Yeah, see, that's actually really great, because right now, like, some orchestras in different parts of the world are reopening, so we're actually starting to ship sound shirts to these orchestras. And actually, I even asked them if they want to make them available free of charge for the hard of hearing and the deaf, like the Junge Symphoniker did, or if people could just rent it. But I know with the Junge Symphoniker, they set up a website where a person can just go and book it, and then on the evening of the concert, they go there and they have an assistant that lets them wear the shirt and sets up the whole system so that they can feel the concert. So I don't know how the different orchestras are going to manage it, but actually, finally, after 1 year of lockdowns, different orchestras are reopening. So we are starting to ship all these new sound shirts out, which should be really great. Some in the US, some in Asia. So I think it should be interesting 2021, 2022 season for concert goers.
I imagine that manufacturing these kinds of devices is not something that your average kind of clothing manufacturer can do. And so probably as they increase their knowledge around producing this kind of thing, prices of these shirts would also come down, right? So that one day maybe everyone can own such a shirt.
Yeah, that would be the absolute idea. Yeah, so we're doing like sort of like pre-orders right now on our website.
Oh, that's actually that is a question that came in too. Yeah. Where can a consumer obtain this shirt? So you can pre-order on the website.
Yeah, you can go to shop.CuteCircuit.com and you can pre-order them now. I have to tell you already, sorry, they're shipping late just because we had so many lockdowns that the whole production is delayed, but we've been working on it. And actually, when I give you the demo of the software, you'll see it's actually really cool and really fun. And is it possible to also have a little engine motor inside the wearable tech that offers pulses haptic feedback, like a device that lets you touch the music, sound and touch it? This is exactly what it does, Thomas.
Yeah. Shall we try it out?
Look, wait, I'm going to stand up, guys, and I'm going to show you the garment. So this is the garment, and all these areas here are the areas with the sensors, and actuators, and I think you can see them. It's like a little squishy thing here. Yeah. It's like squishy things here, and there are, like, you see all these dots? There are many different little squishy things, and they're all over, front and back. So I'll demonstrate because I think it's easier. So I'm gonna open my iPad and I'm gonna show you the interface, guys. So this is the interface, and I already connected this app to my shirt via Bluetooth. So that's how you connect the SoundShirt to the software. And this is the mobile version of the software. Usually the orchestras have a laptop and they have microphones on stage. So lots of complicated things. Here, it's much easier. So if I click.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I can show you what's going on in my garment.
So right now you play the music and the garment sends these impulses and you can actually feel the beat of the music through your body this way.
Oh, wait, let me lower the body. Yeah, so that's what's happening to my shirt, and that's me. So the stronger the sound, the stronger the intensity. Now I'm going to stop it, sorry. The stronger the sound, the stronger the intensity on my garment. And the thing actually that you see these lights happening is because when we designed the first version of the product, when they were just hug shirts, we would have like events where people would come and try them. And the feedback was really interesting because if the garment just looks like a normal garment and something is going on inside it, you cannot really see it happening. So we got some feedback from users and they asked, can't you just put something that makes me know that my friend is being hugged? And so this is the same that is happening in the shirt. We put these LEDs that light up in response to the sound, because at least like if you are having this experience and your friends are looking at you, they know that your shirt is active, so they know that you are enjoying some music. And so that they have a visual cue about what's happening with your garment.
So this is like building also a community in the moment, really, on the fly, where you can connect with someone else who's a little bit further away, but you know that you're together in a way.
Yeah, I think that the thing that was very interesting, for example, last year, right before the lockdown started, we were in Milan for the album launch of an Italian artist, Stardust, and he's a fantastic composer and a pianist. And so we had SoundShirts for both the music industry professionals, like they were writing reviews, all the journalists, but we also had deaf guests at the concert. And so they were wearing the garment and they were able to experience like all basically is music through the shirts. But at the same time, people that were in the audience, they were looking at the lights on the garments and they could see the rhythm of the music happening at the same time. So I think everything is like for you, you're wearing it, but then also the onlookers can have this experience with you. So it's not something that is exclusive, but it's something that actually makes people enjoy the experience together. And I mean, that's what we're trying to do. I mean, the title of our talk is Connecting People Through Music. Yeah. And the idea is that we want to be inclusive, because sometimes you see many different products that are being designed everywhere and not everyone can participate. So you have something amazing like sharing the experience of going to a concert, and then some of your friends cannot come with you because they cannot hear it. So I think that this idea that people can be together and share the experience, that's what we work on. And I mean, one thing is that you love it. Oh, thank you.
Jovanka is a good friend of the Karajan Music Tech Conference, composer, and great artist in Berlin. So we have to make sure that she gets one.
Yeah, of course.
For her next project with an AI, for instance.
That would be nice. But so, one thing that we did that is different between the shirt that Maxine tried when we did the experience at the London Symphony is that shirt works with this whole computer system in which you can actually map different instruments to different parts of the shirt. Yeah. So we have microphones on stage, and the microphones are directional, and they're picking up every instrument separately. And then basically we are importing multi-tracks and analyzing them in real time. Instead, what was happening with the shirt when I was playing Purple Hat by Sophie Tucker, which are great too, is that we're getting a soundtrack that is like a stereo track, and we're splitting the stereo into left and right, and then we're splitting it again in bass, mid-low, mid-high, and treble. So we have 8 areas of the shirt, but I could be wearing this shirt to go to the concert and I would feel the different instruments in different areas, or I can connect it to my phone or to my iPad and just have this stereo conversion happening. So it's just like a slightly different experience, and we try to optimize it for mobile, because of course when you have a stereo track in your iTunes, you cannot get the multi-track from the producers. Yeah. So you get the track that is packaged, and so we basically unpack the track and analyze it. And it's different from the live experience.
And as the people who are watching at the Music Tech Conference know, this is not, an easy feature to actually re-engineer the sound of a stereo signal back into its original sources. But ultimately, I think this should be able. We should be able to do that, and then you could essentially wear the shirt wherever you go, and you connect it with the microphone of your mobile device, and it will do just that. Isn't that cool?
Yeah. Look, for example, here I can choose inputs.
Yes.
And one of those inputs, I think you can see it, is the iPad microphone.
Oh, so you already have that.
Yeah, so I'm just going to start it. And actually, if you talk or I talk, you can see that it's doing
right.
different parts of the shirt.
So if I speak with a low voice, it's another actuator.
I'm going to stop it. It's already doing that. And basically, that's like, I think one of the interesting features. And we did actually that part with the microphone. We did it because for deaf people, sometimes you want to have a awareness of their environment, of their surroundings. So, for example, if you're walking down the street, you want to be aware if there are cars or maybe other people behind you. So we built that version just so that you could just have your phone active with the software in your pocket and then sense the environment.
That's cool. Jeff asks, can individuals choose which embedded electrodes they want to dominate the transmission? Sort of like a personalization, I guess, of the shirt. Is that possible? Yeah, well, usually when we do this, when we do this with the orchestra, you can choose everything. With this software, you cannot decide yet which is going to dominate, but we are going to add that feature because so many people are asking for it. So sometimes you say you want to feel more treble, someone you want to feel more bass. So yeah, we're going to do that for you. I also have this app running on my iPad. And is it possible for me to send something to you?
Yeah, so you were talking about the community. And one thing that is very interesting is that you can also send hugs now with the SoundShirt. So this is our chat. And you see there is this little lightning bolt happening.
Yes, yeah.
So if we do this lightning bolt, okay, you're going to send like a little real-time request and the shirt opened.
Yes.
So now touch the shirt on your interface. I can just go with one of your fingers on one of these dots.
Yeah, like this.
And expand it. Look, I'll show you.
Oh, wow.
So when you touch so I'm feeling it. So you see you're touching there. Let me see if I...
Oh, yeah, I'll touch
do
there.
it again.
This one.
Yeah, one of the wrists. I don't know.
Yeah. I do on the arm.
Yeah, you see? So
you're
touching my shirt all the way from there. And so the thing that you can do is like, this one is called, we are real timing. And so we can real time, and I can actually touch my shirt. And if you were wearing one, you would feel it. Otherwise, you can just see it.
Okay.
And the other thing that we can do if we were not real timing, there is this rather little icon here that is a hand. And basically, with the little hand, you can create a hug and then send it to your friend, like if you were sending a message, and then your friend, even 3 hours later, can look at it, replay it as many times as they want. So we have a database. Basically, all this software is put in hugs in the cloud. And then you can retrieve them or you can stream it in real time. And the other thing, actually, that I'm going to show you that is fun is this part that we call live.
Yeah.
And so if I started to broadcast, I could be touching this shirt and everybody in the world that has the app would be feeling whatever I am broadcasting. So if I was just like...
So we could do a concert and
exactly.
People would listen with their headphones, for instance.
Yeah,
but then we would send
and you would feel it. So that's my dream, right?
Yeah.
Everybody in the world has one. We start a live and we all feel it at the same time. So we can have our dance party all over the world, as many people as you want, because basically you are on your own network, because the shirt is Bluetooth, connects to your phone. Your phone is on 4G or 5G or Wi-Fi, whatever network you want to receive your data from. And then basically we would all feel the same thing at the same time.
So people are going crazy with this already. They are talking about what can be done, what can't be done. Lucas asks, can you also send an unpleasant, maybe sensation? And Jeff Burton asks, and could the shirt be used by gamers in shooter games and so on? So are there applications outside of music and hugging that you are currently working on? Yes, of course. So one thing that is really fun to do, I tried myself in VR. You can play Beat Saber wearing the shirt, and it's just so good. I mean, it's really one of the things I love. One other thing that we tried, like you were asking, like about the first-person shooter games, we tried it with the Titanfall, and I think that the thing that is very cool about wearing the shirt when playing Titanfall is that in Titanfall you can be your own avatar, and just like as a
human walking around shooting things, or you could be the human inside a mech that is sort of like a big mechanic exoskeleton, and you can actually tell the difference if the exoskeleton is stepping around the landscape or if you are walking around the landscape as your human avatar. So you can feel the reverb of the steps of the mech through your body, which I think is really eerie and a little bit spooky. And like sort of you can hear the sounds of helicopters far away, sort of going around you. So this is one of the things that we've been doing this whole year. We've been trying to apply to different fields. So we've been applying like to gaming and to virtual reality. And I think these are kind of applications that are really fun because they make every other experience become very immersive.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm thinking when you actually have a shirt that not only has the pressure sensitive sensors, but also gyroscopes and so on, you can actually measure movement also. And that could be used in a gaming experience really seamlessly.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the gaming is like a massive sort of like, especially right now in which everybody has to be at home. Hopefully not for long.
Yeah. But let's, Francesca, let's go into the future. You said earlier, like when you started this whole thing, you thought about a shirt that people would wear in 5 to 10 years. Now, what do you envision in the next 10 years to happen? What are some of your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think like one thing that we've been working towards is like having things that are like higher resolution. So definitely I see like many times people say, oh, can we have a total bodysuit? Actually, yes, because how we design the system is that is scalable and is modular. So we have all these tiny little modules that are our haptic modules, and we can just put everywhere we want. So one thing that we want to try to do is like you can have a whole body experience, which I think would be incredible. But the other thing that we really want to point to is that we want to deploy that in as many locations as possible, because I think that makes like every experience is part of like the sharing the experience. I think that is what really helps with a sort of a mass deployment. So, I mean, one thing that is interesting is that we had to come up with our own manufacturing methods, as you were saying. And sometimes when people think about wearable technology, they think, oh, it's going to be a garment and it's going to have like wires inside or something terrible. But actually, no, as you can see, what I'm wearing is like super stretchy. And we came up with ideas to make this whole garment textile with conductive fabrics. And so I think that like how we change the manufacturing process, then it makes it much more easy to deploy. So we're innovating on lots of different directions, both the materials that we use, how we manufacture it, and what the experience can be. So that's what we're working on towards the future.
Yeah, I mean, you have a couple of patents also in this space, and one can see that you are working on this sort of from the ground up and really building an ecosystem, which I find super interesting. Also because, you know, when we think about computing in general, you know, we come from a world where the computer is this, to the computer is now this, but the computer can also be your shirt. In a way, you know, if we think about that development further, like in 10, in 20, in 50 years, what are some of the visions that you have from a sci-fi perspective? Like, is there something that you see that you would wish we would have, like interplanetary travel? That's it for me, but maybe in your world, there's something else that you see that you would really like to achieve in our lifetime, let's say.
I mean, besides sending hug shirts to space, I think NASA should have hug shirts, and all the astronauts should be able to hug their families from far away, even from the moon or Mars. So I think that's one of my plans for the nearer future. And also, like one thing that usually when I speak like at design conferences, we're like, when you have like our wearable technology vision for the future, is that everything that looks like a mobile phone or a box is going to disappear, and all this technology will be in our garments. And then you can decide when you want to turn on this garment or switch it off. Because sometimes when people think about this deployment of technology that becomes very pervasive, people start thinking about questions of privacy, questions of like, am I going to be observed? Who's gathering my data? So we are trying to develop these products in a way that you own your data, you own your interactions, but at the same time, they can be sort of like deployed on a mass scale. So it's kind of interesting finding a balance towards what's going to happen in the future. But I think that definitely all this technology should be wearable, just because it's easier to carry around. If you drop it on the floor, it doesn't break. So the other day I dropped my phone, that's why I'm using an iPad today, and because the whole glass shattered on the back. So if I drop this t-shirt on the floor,
no problem.
Not gonna shatter. So I think that there are advantages to wearables because it's soft.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing that I found always surprising was that the Google glasses or Google Lens, or what was it called, that didn't take off, because I thought that was such a cool idea. And you wouldn't have to stare at your screens anymore. And so I really hope that this movement of wearable technology is now taking off. And I want to thank you for being here and sharing all of this amazing stuff with our community. I think it gave many people a lot of inspiration, and hopefully you'll be back in a couple of years with something new to show. Thank you so much, Francesca.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Matthias, for inviting me. And I really enjoyed the afternoon with you guys. So if you have any other questions, just feel free to send them at CuteCircuit. You'll find us online. But have a great afternoon, everyone. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye. And I'll bring back Julia on stage. Hi, Julia. You're muted. You have to unmute yourself.
I was just so with the SoundShirt. I want one too.
Me too.
Away.
I can't wait for it to come out. So
it's fantastic. Imagine that. I mean, you don't have to tune up the music. You just feel it through your body. That's just so good. I can't wait to have that on.
A couple of years ago, we had a guy from Berlin at the conference, and he was creating these. He calls them baslets, little braces, arm braces that vibrate with the bass pattern of the music, and that was just unbelievable. But imagine now you have a full shirt with that.
On a full body, and also embracing people who are hard of hearing, or people who are born without the hearing ability, who can now join the music sensation fully, not only imagining or through the feet or so. Great.
Our next program is all about live streaming and new experiences through technology. So it's a seamless handover. Julia, I leave you now and have fun with the guys coming up now.
Thank you. See you later. Bye, Matthias. Yeah, we are now speaking about how to connect communities in this crazy world we have now, the new normal. And I welcome on screen Heri Shin from Berlin. She's a violinist, hello Heri, and has launched a series of concerts streamed from the new now empty bars in Berlin. And I also welcome James McAulay, who has built Encore, or Encore, you will tell us later, a startup and community of on-demand musicians. Hello, James.
Hi.
And two people who have connected here at the Karajan Music Tech, Tahlia Petrosian, who's a violist and director of Classic Underground, and Alex Olegnowicz, creative technology entrepreneur and innovator based in Toronto, so we're back to Canada now. And Alex, you specialize in creative technology solutions for media, entertainment, and the arts. And I would like to start with you two, because it's like a dream come true. You made a couple here during one of our Brain Trust meetings, I think.
We met maybe 3-4 years ago on the first Karajan Music and Tech conference in Salzburg, and we stayed in touch. Then we lost touch, and we were back in touch because Tahlia wanted to create something new, and I said I'm in immediately. So
And what is the new thing? Tahlia, you tell us.
Well, I think that, when the whole pandemic started, a lot of artists and a lot of orchestras started streaming their concerts, and that happened very quickly. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to try and experiment with the idea that we would create a concert format that was specifically for an online audience. So, and the two main things that I wanted to look at was treating the internet as a visual medium and treating the internet as an interactive medium. So with those two things in mind, I created the series Resonate, which is a series where there is a concert, maybe 45 minutes or an hour, and in this time, a visual artist creates a work or creates a visual response to the music. So you can actually, so there is the chance to watch this kind of visual response to the concert. And then the second aspect to the series is that when the concert is streamed, it's not streamed live, it's streamed later on, but that when it is streamed, the musicians and the artists are online at the same time. So when you're watching this, you can actually interact with those people through a chat and ask questions about what's going on or what they're doing, or and you have direct contact with the people you are actually simultaneously watching on the stage.
And I imagine that's a fantastic idea. But if I would have it, I wouldn't know how to put it out there. And there, Alex comes to the picture, right?
That's right. Yes. So
Alex, you knew the solution.
When I explained the idea to Alex, he was very, very generous and immediately said that he would help with setting up the interactive chat and the streaming and all of these types of things, because obviously, it was necessary to have technical expertise for this.
We have a little trailer of yours, I suppose, so we can know a bit better what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Where is this happening actually? Because I would now be an audience and want to see this, but how do I accidentally fall over it?
So physically, it's being filmed in the Moritzbastei Club, which is an underground club in Leipzig, which is right next door to the Gewandhaus. So the musicians are Gewandhaus musicians. I'm also a Gewandhaus musician. I play viola in the orchestra. But in terms of where it is actually then being streamed, the first concert, which we just saw the clip of the first concert, Resonate Opus 1, that was filmed across the Karajan Institute, that was streamed across the Karajan Institute social media platforms, so across YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Now, for the second concert, Alex and I are now working on developing actually a new streaming platform where we're actually going to create a platform which has interactive elements to it, because a lot of the platforms for streaming concerts today are quite conservative in the sense that there isn't so much, so much scope for interaction. I think maybe, it's headed towards that, but we really wanted to put something out there where we said, okay, you can interact and also have a music education component as part of the platform as well. I think this is also a very important area now, because we have a whole generation of young people who've accepted the idea now because of Corona that they can receive their education, whether it's school or university, through digital means. So we have to now come in and say, okay, we've got all these people who have accepted this idea. How can we also offer music education digitally? So Alex and I are working on developing a new platform, a new kind of digital space where we can look at being more interactive. We can stream concerts. We can have music education projects. We can, really do a lot of different things. So, and that space is going to be the new place where we stream the second Resonate concert, which will be streamed at the beginning of June.
Let's keep Resonate in mind for a moment and introduce the other two projects. For a moment, I would like to hand over to Heri, because it's actually somewhat kind of the same place you're going. You're going into empty bars, which can't have any guests at the moment. And are you occupying them and filling them with music? What are you doing?
Well, hi, I'm Heri. I'm a violist and founder and the director of Berlin Bar Classics. So Berlin Bar Classics is a non-profit initiative to support and connect music and culture during this Corona crisis. So basically we play classical music in empty bars, and we make the music videos, and we deliver it through social media so we can reach more people and to introduce culture venue and classical music.
And you brought a little trailer as well. I'd like to show this as well. Okay, thank you. So we have the ambition to actually bring artists to spaces, because some of us, some musicians lack basically places where we can play at the moment. So you're working on that, and I'd like to show you now James's solution for the actual situation. James, you are sort of coming also from the other end. You're taking demands for a music experience and then connecting this to artists.
Yes, so we built a marketplace for customers to book musicians to perform at their parties, at weddings, at conferences and things like that. And we were doing hundreds of bookings every month right up until this time last year, obviously. And so we spent the last year trying to find ways to help musicians earn money when they obviously can't perform in person. And actually, we're now seeing a lot of demand for bookings this summer. So I think the video you're about to show is a clip from the radio this week, where radio presenters were talking about how busy our website has been in the last few weeks, because everyone's planning parties and weddings that will hopefully take place in the summer.
Okay, let's listen to that.
Well, as I said, there is kind of muted optimism out there. So to give some specific examples, I spoke yesterday with James McAulay, founder of Encore, which is a musician booking platform for events, a fellow Scot of Callum, so I'm sure you'll be a fan. Yeah. So and he was telling me how March 2021 has been his busiest month ever so far for traffic, and of course that is partially related to the fact that we have seen that roadmap. So people are wanting to have celebrations, have parties. He was talking about the backlog for weddings. So the fact that there's lots of people who want to celebrate their wedding this year that weren't able to last year, and also those who want to have parties. Perhaps they had smaller celebrations last year, and also people throwing parties to celebrate, reopenings of pubs and restaurants, etc. So he said last year was tough. Absolutely, sales were low. they tried to pivot to virtual products, made use of that government support, but now he says he can't hire salespeople fast enough, and that his tech systems are even struggling to keep up with the spike in demand, which is obviously a good problem to have. So.
Well, we heard somebody telling what I was hoping you would tell yourself. But it seems you have the best time of your life during the pandemic. So congratulations to that.
Not quite. I would say the last 12 months have been the worst times of our company's lives, and certainly of our musicians' lives. Here in the UK, the government, I think 4 weeks ago, set out a plan that will hopefully get us out of lockdown, and nobody knows if we're actually going to follow the plan or not. But as soon as the government said, these are the dates that we plan to reopen, live music, parties, weddings in the summer, as soon as the government said that, so many people came to our website and started booking musicians for this summer. And as soon as someone makes a booking on our website, the musician gets a deposit as well. So musicians are starting to get some cash for those bookings that will take place in the summer, which is great. And hopefully, fingers crossed, those events might go ahead. So yeah, it's not, we're not out of the storm yet, but it looks like there might be a sort of light at the end of the tunnel now.
Oh, light at the end of the tunnel, that's something everybody is just hoping for so much wherever we are at the moment. So how can all of your particular projects help with that? On the one hand, musicians don't want to play for the mirror, or for the empty hall at home, for the bathroom, or for the anonymous camera in front of them, but they want to share their music. And at the same time, of course, we all want to earn money, and we want to, especially young musicians, which I suppose Heri is working with, they're having their time of their life to develop their talent and just can't show it to the world. So all of these problems coming together, how to build new communities, or how to connect communities who are out there, who want music to happen, who want to support it, who want to listen, who just want to sit in an audience chair again. How can we do that? Any suggestions?
I think that the pandemic has really opened the eyes to the smaller artists, the smaller orchestras as well. Not the top, the big orchestras, which have been silent for all this time. I think that it has been a great opportunity to bring part of the technology, and I'm not trying to promote our platform, but I think that the new normal, as everybody's calling it, is not going to be when do we open the concert hall and go back, because that's going to take several years. But I do think that the hybrid solution has to be found, where you're performing, to a half-empty hall, but you're also performing to the people at home. And very, very few artists have taken advantage of this. And I'm talking about the majors, especially in North America. It comes to mind the San Francisco Symphony, who has done really an outstanding program to reach out to their audiences. I think that the big orchestras have to follow what the smaller artists are doing. Like there's another artist that has been here at the Karajan Institute, the Dark Tenor, who has really, they recorded in Berlin some outstanding pieces of music. I had the chance to interview him a few weeks ago, and he was in the middle of an empty soccer stadium, which was great. Nobody wants to do that. I still don't understand why the major orchestras have done absolutely nothing. Like, yeah, they put a concert here and there, but it's the same of nothing. They need to do something creative, something interesting, and understand that that the world is their audience. I saw earlier this week another conference where they were saying, only 7% of the people want to stay home and watch a concert. They said, yeah, but your numbers are absolutely wrong, because you're taking the people that are going to the concert hall. Everybody wants to go back, but you're only asking the same 1,000 people, 7% want to stay home. The number is wrong. It's 7% of 7 billion people in the world. That's a very, very large number that wants to watch your concert. If it's interesting, if it's not interesting, they're not going to watch. So just come up with something, creative, fantastic. Beethoven is fantastic. I'm sure he would, at the time of, when he was conducting and composing, he had his groupies. I would like to see the groupies, of classical or contemporary classical music show up and follow you like they do. I mentioned the Dark Tenor, but Christian Järvi has his groupies who follow the Baltic Sea Philharmonic all over the place, and they fill out the concert halls or outside. We need to change how we present the music. The music will not change. The way we present it has to change, definitely. And if they're waiting for the government to bail them out, then the government shouldn't. Sorry.
I think Alex made a really good point there about groupies at the end. And I think the pandemic in the last 12 months has encouraged a lot of musicians to really engage with their fans in a very intimate and a very personal way. And I think a lot of musicians have turned to platforms like Patreon and Twitch, where actually, if you can find 100 people who love your music so much that they will pay £10 or £15 a month, then actually you do have an income, and you can put on a show specifically for them. You can build a community amongst your fans. And we've seen some of our musicians do that. We've seen musicians who had no experience with live streaming whatsoever. And in the last 12 months, they've adopted platforms like Twitch and Facebook Live and Instagram Live and Clubhouse and all of this. And they've actually built up these clusters of very dedicated, passionate fans who will pay money to hear their music. So I think that, to follow on from what Alex was saying, there's loads of opportunity for the small and the individual artists to sort of engage with their fans. I think I agree with Alex. It's harder for the bigger orchestras, and they've got some challenges in front of them right now for sure.
I would look at what Tahlia has been doing, which is very similar to what Heri has been doing with Classical Underground. It's fantastic programs, and it's something that even Deutsche Grammophon did with the yellow, what is it called, Tahlia? The yellow studio, where they do, amazing concerts. And I was looking what Heri was doing. It's fantastic. Just like tune in, watch it. Let's do high-level production. People will actually pay and come and see it because it's a fantastic performance. We just need to make it attractive for an audience at home.
I also really agree, with Alex strongly, because I'm one of the musicians who was actually forced to be creative in these times. So I think it could be our chance, especially for classical music. Classical music, it's always been a little bit in the traditional side and stiff relatively. And I see this as our chance to go out there onto the platforms, like many platforms, and then be creative and kind of explore bringing our music, but in creative ways. So yeah, I really strongly agree with Alex.
You mentioned, sorry, Julia, you're
no, go ahead.
She just mentioned that people believe that classical music is stiff. I'd like to challenge that concept because Beethoven Ninth or Fifth or any nice concerto, anything, it's anything but stiff. Maybe it's stiff the way we present it, and that's the problem.
So more dance floors for classical music, I hear from that. How to find a way producing such content and opportunities without working against each other? Is it too visionary to get a community where everybody is earning the same share, but showing, okay, there are many musicians and all of them have to say something?
Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Yeah, could you clarify the question slightly?
We all have to make a living out of that. So if we have now 3 genius ideas, who's going first and who's earning the first pound?
I think Yeah, to go back to what Alex was saying before, I think one thing that has happened as a result of coronavirus is that people are now exposed to a global audience of, it's not 7 billion people, because obviously everyone's not on the internet yet, but it's probably, I'm not sure, 4 billion maybe online, 3 or 4. And so whilst an artist before was limited to where they could travel and who they could sort of perform in person to, theoretically any artist now can reach anyone anywhere in the world. And so I don't think that there's a shortage of people out there willing to pay money, and I don't think there's a sort of small pie that has to be shared around every musician. I think actually there's so much opportunity out there for musicians right now. It's not easy, it's very challenging, and it takes a lot of work to get to a point where you're actually making, you know, good money from online performances. But if I understood your question correctly, I don't think that's a problem. I think there's plenty of music fans out there willing to pay money for good music on the internet right now.
We like our model that we're working with Tahlia is based on sharing the income with the artist. We don't want the artist to be streaming for many reasons onto the traditional social media platforms, especially because they get taken down and get copyright strikes immediately, but to share the income in a way that is profitable for everybody. I mean, we're doing our investment on that. We're banking on the idea that the musicians are going to get a very healthy return on their performances.
I have one comment coming in from Muhalif. The interactive digital studies which young musicians can meet with the very experienced musicians are wonderful. Why didn't we think of it before? Yeah, that's the question. Actually, it's now getting dynamics into that. And he's adding many master classes could be done live with hundreds of participants. This should certainly go on after the corona quarantine period. However, I don't think such meetings can and should be considered equivalent of programmed face-to-face education. I think we all agree in that. But where to find the new balance? You had the idea of actually using this for music education as well, Tahlia.
Well, to go back to the Resonate format, where you saw the trailer of the concert that we streamed, Resonate is in cooperation with the Goethe Institute in Thailand, because our first guest visual artist for our first concert was a visual artist from Thailand. So we were cooperating with the Goethe Institute, and as part of the cooperation, the Goethe Institute started asking about whether we could, have some kind of talks or, talk about the nature and the artistic collaboration that we had engaged in order to put the first concert together. And as I saw that they were more and more interested in this, I think that's when I started to think about seriously having a larger emphasis and a larger focus on music education. Because as I said, I think that this is something that through the pandemic that we have all these young people who have now accepted the idea that they can receive an education online. That opens up a whole new window for the fact that music education can now be international. So, we can have musicians in the Gewandhaus Orchestra who are in Leipzig talking about the nature of their artistic collaboration with a Thai artist, and we can reach an international audience. The idea is that actually with Resonate in particular, that these seminars will be presented to a live audience in Bangkok. So we will be presenting digitally and connecting digitally, but presenting to a live audience. And then that opens up a whole new range of things, with masterclasses, etc. Or that, you can have I think that this has opened up a really fantastic opportunity because of its international aspect. So you can have people in Asia or in other continents who are exposed to artists and ideas of music education and ideas that are, of artistic collaboration that are being explored anywhere in the world. And this is also, I mean, it's not to replace anything, but it is to support what is already taking place on a face-to-face basis in that location. So it simply supports and offers a new perspective to young people.
Here comes a technical question by a very stupid person, me, because I cannot imagine how this could work technique-wise without breaking up, without time shifts, and that's the reason why making chamber music with other people in other countries so difficult online. It's difficult to do it actually in the same moment. So, Alex, the floor is yours. Do it so I can understand it. Mickey Mouse me, please.
No, you know what? The technology is there only to assist us. I think that, you know, Tahlia is currently in Sydney. We have meetings at weird times of the day, and it works. There is a way of doing it, you know, at 9 p.m. wherever you are as well. It's not a problem, but we just need to adapt. It's the whole world. We have to be there if we want to make a living now. This is how it is. I have to wake up at 4 a.m, and that, you know, there's no solution of time shifting ourselves, but we can time shift the concert. There's sometimes that we do the same concert 3 times so people can enjoy it at different times of the evening, and we have the artist awake for 12 hours. That's the way it is. There's nothing around it. I just want to make sure, you know, that we're building, and that's what the talk was about, building a community of people that we're supporting, and that the artists are there to entertain and, you know, feed our soul with the music. And then the end point is to bring music or ballet or opera or whatever it is that we are trying to do to the audiences, and that's who we cater for.
I think to go back to that comment we had maybe a few minutes ago where someone was asking why we haven't considered this sort of hybrid approach to masterclasses before. And to answer your question, Julia, as well, I think you were asking how can 2 musicians in different places make music at the same time without there being a delay and a breakup in the connection. The technology before the pandemic, before coronavirus, all existed. It was possible to run a hybrid masterclass if you wanted to. You could run a very good masterclass with musicians in a concert hall, and you could stream it to thousands of people outside the concert hall if you wanted to. Also, if you wanted to make music with your bandmates who lived in different countries at the same time, there is hardware that lets you, if you have a fast enough internet connection, there's hardware that does actually let you play at the same time. I think there's one called Jam Kazam, and there's something else called Jamulus. But to broadly sort of wrap this point up, all the technology existed, but I don't think musicians were familiar with it. I don't think there was maybe appetite for live streaming in the same way that there is now. And the pandemic has forced everyone to learn very quickly how to stream online. And I think pretty much every musician I know has now become a video editor and a sound producer and a graphic designer. They've had to learn all these skills. So yeah, the technology was there and it was all possible before, but we've just been forced, as Heri said, we've been forced to be creative. And I think that's why it's been happening in the last year, but it was possible beforehand.
Yeah, can I just jump in there as well, because Resonate is the second kind of format that I've developed. The first one was Classic Underground, and with Classic Underground, we have a lot of top soloists who come and do after shows in the same location as where we present Resonate. So if we have people like Andres Nelsons, we've had Anna Sakamoto, we've had Joshua Bell, Jean-Yves Thibaudet, all of these soloists who are normally coming to perform, or who are coming to perform with Gewandhaus Orchestra, they then do an after show at Classic Underground. And in the beginning, now what we've always done at Classic Underground is produce a 3-minute video clip that is then edited and it's improved and then it's used on social media. But of course, we did consider the idea of streaming Classic Underground in the beginning. And this was very, very difficult and impossible because all of these artists had exclusive contracts. And there was always the reaction, which is totally understandable, that they felt that it would be too much pressure if it was going to be streamed, because they've got their, it's going out there into the world. And, with Classic Underground, we normally just do 1 or 2 rehearsals. It's a casual kind of after show. And I think that now, actually, the attitude at the top level of our branch has changed because of the corona pandemic. I think that a lot of the top level artists now are much more open to the idea of live streaming. The question is whether, whether big record companies and licensing agreements and all of these things also are going to become more open to it, because in the classical music world, we have the idea of exclusivity. You have an exclusive arrangement with Deutsche Grammophon or with Sony or whatever. And I think that this is getting back to your earlier question, Julia, of how are we going to all act together. I think that exclusivity with certain recording companies or whatever, that this is quite an old-fashioned idea now, because live streaming basically just takes that out of play. And I think that the other thing that we need to talk about is that the reason, to some extent, why we've had many freelance musicians and individual musicians be able to be very creative during the pandemic and try out new things and live stream, etc., is because they're not necessarily tied up in the whole kind of structure that classical music has put out there. If you're an artist who has an agent and has an exclusive contract and whatever, there's a lot of kind of tape that is surrounding that, and licensing agreements and all of these types of things. And I think that structure is not actually ideal for our new world, which is a world of live streaming. It's a world where we don't have exclusivity. It's a world where we're just trying to get classical music to have a presence in the digital space. So I think that attitudes, I think, have changed through the pandemic, that people are open to the idea of live streaming, that they're not so concerned about having a bad performance or whatever, because the market has actually just been saturated with live concert streams, or just there's so much stuff out there. So I think that it's been great to have these young musicians and entrepreneurs come out and try different things and really kind of show the path for how other artists and other kind of more conservative, more traditional orchestras can really go out there and start experimenting. But I think that the other thing that we need to consider is the fact that the whole structure of our world, when it comes to traditional large orchestras and high class soloists and all of this, is not a structure that really ever took into account the situation that we are now in.
Yep.
I just threw in Matthias's comment. Do we now all have to become entrepreneurs? Is there who says, I only want to do my music and I want to be back in my rehearsal room? Are those people supposed to be thrown down the ivory tower? No. Or is that just the situation? Will it wrap up again after the pandemic?
Maybe Heri can answer as
yeah, well, maybe. Yeah, so I just think this, I was educated by Musically, and I was always in this musical environment where I went to music middle school, music high school, and music bachelor's degree and master's degree. So it was so much for me. I was only focused to just playing well to get a job. And this kind of pandemic situation forced me to think of other opportunities, and then forced me to becoming a more entrepreneur. And I personally always think that musician has to be more entrepreneur rather than instrumental players, like we often get educated. In that sense, I often these days talk with my colleague musicians about how many times we just spend our days just practicing in practice room, hoping that shooting maybe one day we get a job in a good orchestra. But actually the world is not like that, and no one taught us when we were in this kind of music industry, music education. So I hope this pandemic situation and crisis is also a chance for other peer musicians to open up their eyes and then become more, jumping into more creativities and pioneering better platforms, or just throw their self out there.
It just, I think it's like, it's the evolution of the world. The classical music institution as its own, has been its own worst enemy. As Tahlia said, you're tied to a contract that is not favorable now, and it hasn't been favorable for 20 years now. I think, such as corporations, from the early 20th century that we thought would be with us forever, Union Carbide and US Steel, all of these huge, they disappeared. They were taken out by little competitors. Even companies, Flickr, which was a digital company, doesn't exist anymore. Now you put your picture somewhere else. Either you evolve or you die. You get eaten by somebody else. I'm not saying that the classical musicians that practice all day are going to disappear. Definitely not. But there's certainly an evolution that has to occur, and that's just a natural thing. That's why pop artists, come and go faster, but they have tremendously big exposure. I still never understand why in the classical music we don't have the raving fans, because we still go to a concert hall with 2,000 people and we sit there quietly, and God forbid that you applaud because they turn around and say, this guy is crazy, he doesn't know what he's listening to. Instead, I can go to a 19,000 person arena and the guy sings and I see him on a massive screen. They're really ahead of everything else. So that's what we have to do. That's what it is.
I think some of my friends who were at music college in the last few years, having spoken to them, so the classical conservatoires in London, I think the conservatoires are starting to give more entrepreneurial sort of education and to sort of include that in the curriculum more. But I think there's still quite far behind some of the more modern like pop institutions, and like the sort of Berklee College of Music, for example, seems to set up its artists in such a way that they understand how the music industry works and how to like capture value from their music. And it seems like classical musicians come out of music college, as you say, with impeccable technique and a love of music, but very little knowledge of how to actually, yes, go and make music. So I do think conservatoires are starting to adapt and will have adapted a lot in the last year, but they've still got a long way to go to sort of rival the modern contemporary music institutions that seem to be doing it really well already.
That's okay.
So I see all of us want to be entrepreneurs now. Sorry, Tahlia.
Yes, I just want to say, I think it is difficult though for classical music because, the pop world, in the classical music world, we have works which are, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, the whole duration of the repertoire is already a huge challenge because we live in a society where everything has to be done super fast. You want a 30-second clip, you want a 2-minute song or whatever. And it's quite difficult within a world which is so focused on short attention spans and short, kind of bite-sized portions to then try and sell like a 3-hour opera. And so I think that this is already a big challenge. And I think it's also a big challenge because, classical music, we're going to a classical music concert is a collective experience. A lot of people go to these concerts also in order to be seen at the concert. That's a big difference between a classical music and a pop music concert. So that's already another big challenge. So when you try and present classical music in the digital sphere, because nobody can see you if you're at home watching this concert. There's the socializing aspect to it and the status aspect to it that is that you lose once you take away the collectivity of the experience. So this is also a very big difference. So at the same time as I think the answer is yes, we need to encourage more entrepreneurship. with young classical musicians. It's not as easy to be an entrepreneur in the classical world as it is in the pop world, simply because the nature of what we're dealing with, the animal, in terms of the art form itself, as well as the way it is regarded by our audience, is very, very different.
I really agree what Tahlia says, and as much as I understand what it's really hard to be an entrepreneur as a classical musician, but that's also another reason why I think there has to be many platforms and organizations that encourages classical musicians to become a freelancer rather than stuck in just hierarchy, orchestra, or like film companies. So
you're absolutely right. I agree so much that in encouraging people to actually take their life or their career in their own hands is not happening at the institutions, and everybody has to convince themselves, and that's quite hard. Here was one comment coming in: do we know if we're losing elderly audiences who are not too keen on using new tools for live streaming now in this time of lockdown? I would like to put the question a little bit different, how to embrace people who are not familiar with these live streaming tools, how to introduce them to the good sides of live streaming.
What we saw with some of our clients that have been streaming, especially orchestras in North America, that they don't lose the audience even at home. There is a technical challenge of how do I stream from my from my tablet to my smart TV or whatnot. But other than that, they're pretty much there. I mean, I get my mother to watch all the time, so it's we got to do it.
She knows whom to call.
We need to.
She knows whom to call up when it's not going right. So, James, do you have the perfect tuition to elderly audiences who might have the money but sort of are afraid to use the new tools?
I think, it obviously falls on the designers of all these tools to make sure that they're accessible, that they're simple. I think trying to meet elderly people where they already are on the internet, which is probably Facebook and maybe Zoom as well. I know a lot of elderly people who have been using Zoom with, some problems a year ago, but no problems now.
No.
I think it's trying to, if possible, if you're going to stream, maybe using something like Restream that allows you to go to YouTube and to Twitch, and maybe if you can get it onto a Zoom call as well, then people can join you in a very familiar fashion. But I think if you ask people to learn a new piece of technology, then yes, you're probably going to lose some elderly audiences.
People, I see that. So sorry to interrupt, Tahlia. I see that we will have to shift our discussion to the lobby now, because we have an artist waiting for his live performance now, and I feel bad about that because I didn't watch the time because I was so fascinated. You had so many things to say. So thank you all for being here, and please let's meet backstage and in the lobby, and maybe over our virtual dinner tonight. Thanks Tahlia, thanks Heri, thanks Alex, and thanks James for being here, and please keep discussing in the lobby now, and all the questions popping up here, please also come to the lobby and keep discussing, because I know this is a hot topic and it's not finished here. Thank you,
Julia, and thank you for that guy up here.
Yeah, thanks, Matthias.
Thank you all. Thanks, Julia. Thanks to the panel. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of the panel discussions of the Karajan Music Tech conference this year. We had a full week of really mind-blowing and inspiring talks and discussions, and we also always had a performance, almost always, every day, a performance of an amazing artist. And today it is no different. Before we switch over to the performance, I want to take a brief moment, though, to thank my amazing team for making this conference happen. They have worked so hard in the back to bring this show to you, and I would like to single out in particular Nikolai Böhlefeld, who has been running the technology in the back end. Nikolai, thank you so much. If you like, you can show yourself. There you are. Thank you very much. But the whole team has really been amazing. So for me, it was a great pleasure. I hope you enjoyed it too. Now, refresh your browser as we get the stream started with Ralf Schmidt, who is giving us an amazing performance just for us and everyone else who's watching. And then I'll see you later on in the virtual dinner, which is the conference dinner that we have every time. Thank you and bye-bye.